And this is where it also comes back to the mindset. So it'd be very easy to be very Britishly cynical about it.
Yeah.
And say, oh, voice commerce never really took off and the metaverse didn't take off. So this AI thing isn't going to take off. Great, okay, have that mindset. But there is going to be shifting of volume. But that's the mindset that makes you lose track of the fact that one of the fastest growing areas for search at the moment is visual.
Hello and welcome to a special episode of the Retail Podcast. I know I always say they're special, but for me it's like a crescendo. They just keep getting better and better. And it's special because I'm in the Hive offices with none other, with world famous Ben Miller, VP of Content at Shoptalk. And, for me, it's like crazy because I'm always in the stage watching you, Ben, right? And I'm just lapping up, the speakers that you find, the content that you produce and put there. But for the people that maybe haven't had a chance to come along to Shoptalk around the world, do you mind just giving us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. And welcome to the office. Thank you. Well, thank you for coming in, Alex. It's great to see you. And so, Ben Miller, my role, I'm VP of what we call Original Content and Strategy at the Shoptalk and GroceryShop group. So what does that really mean? It means I have the privilege of working in a global role across the global portfolio. We now have 5 shows under the Shoptalk and GroceryShop banners in the US, in Europe, in Barcelona, coming really soon, and in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi, for our new Shoptalk Lux. And my role is to pull together research, insights, coordinate the talking points, and really to bring new original thinking to all of our shows, and also to make sure that we weave a common narrative of how we're seeing the retail market emerge and develop and what's next, and how we weave it throughout our full portfolio.
Wow.
Because Shoptalk is all about the future of retail. It's all about digital transformation.
Yeah.
It's all about retail innovation. So if we want to make sure that all of our shows are looking forward, looking to the future, we need to spend a lot of time really looking at the market, really thinking about what's going on in retail. And then we position our content and our show propositions accordingly.
Wow. Okay, I mean, thank you for giving up the time because we're only 3 weeks away from Shoptalk Europe. So you must be, it's getting very close to the baby being delivered, right? In terms of, you're almost there.
It is.
You must speak to so many people in the industry around the world about insights, what's coming up. What's top of mind for you? What's the one thing that you're hearing people talk about?
I mean, I have a very privileged position. So my background is retail as an operator.
Yeah.
And then I did a long stint consultancy side in global retail, focusing on groceries. So I kind of bring that, and I'm now sitting in this incredible seat where I get to, as you say, talk to literally hundreds of senior leaders through the year, because we select and we prep every single speaker in every single conversation, and we get to work with incredible moderators who lead our conversations on stage. So what are we hearing at the moment? Uncertainty and agility and the requirements of that.
Yeah.
We talk a bit about that. We look a lot about how customers and their online behaviors are changing. Okay, some around transaction, but a lot at the moment about search and discovery.
Yeah.
And how search is changing and how you get your products found and the overlap into digital marketing. Lots and lots of conversations about how that then blurs into media and how that blurs into retail media.
Yeah.
So retail media is exploding in terms of the money flowing into it. Well, kind of that, a lot of that community sit within the Shoptalk world. So lots of conversations about how you balance adjacent revenue streams to the core business. And then there's a lot at the moment that comes up in conversations around operational efficiency, so particularly around stores. So one of the things we do is we keep a very close eye on where funding, particularly VC and PE money, goes into.
Got you.
Because that helps to give you an idea of the stuff's been invested in, about what's going to hit.
Yeah.
Trying to talk about the future of retail sounds really pretentious.
Yeah.
I would never claim to be a futurologist. I'm a grocer from Yorkshire. But one of the things that we do try and do is to understand, if we see a lot of money being invested into an area of technology now, what does that mean, or what does that look like, and who are the people investing, and why are they doing that, and that sort of thing. And one of the areas that we're seeing a lot of investment into at the moment is in-store technologies to drive efficiency. Because those wafer-thin margins that retailers work on are getting squeezed more than ever, and we all know why. So a lot around operational efficiency, how you find that next leap and how technology can help continue to take cost out of stores. And at the same time, how you make those stores, and mostly physical, but digital as well, how you make them more engaging. Because we've all been into beautiful, engaging showcase stores, and you've been into really efficient, effective stores. But how do you do both? Because that's kind of where the game is at the moment. And that's huge in retailers' minds. Lots of conversations around that as well. Investments that we're seeing, whether it's some of the investments in robotics, a lot of the work on inventory management, and again, kind of continuing on that grocery line, there's lots of investment going into inventory management, stock management, more and more retailers buying into ESLs, all of which are there to kind of drive the efficiency and how you plug AI, agentic AI into all that to make all that more efficient, whilst also trying to drive that front-end experience, driving the CX, because we're seeing so much investment into loyalty mechanics, into kind of gamification, into and just beautiful retailing. I was in an Albert Heijn store a fortnight ago, and it just reminded me how great, and they are a really efficient and effective retailer, but doing some fantastic things in merchandising. So how you save here, where you need to then invest, how you get the product and range. That's kind of core retailing, but it's not an either or. And there's a whole series of retailers, and I think, Mercadona is a great example of being able to do both.
I think the most profitable grocer right now globally from a margin perspective, right? Because the margins it's incredible when you look at it. Are there any examples of like bold leadership that you can share with us in terms of things that you've seen that have really stood out for you?
I think it's a great question, and that topic of leadership can never be more important at the moment. Because I think one of the first things that's top on everybody's mind is uncertainty. And the conversations that we have is less about what are the concrete actions I need to take now. And of course, there are some of that. And, I feel we don't have enough time to talk about tariffs and the implications. But one of the big implications is around leadership and managing through uncertainty and bold leadership. So ensuring that everybody is really clear on the direction is going in, that everybody's really clear on the investments that's being made. These things are incredibly important at the moment. Now, there's some tactical things that need to be done around kind of pricing, price elasticity, price visibility. But your biggest, you can invest a lot into great AI to understand if I increase the price a little bit here, what does it mean to somebody over here in the store? I mean, the most important thing, the best lever you've got on price elasticity is brand building. And that's really interesting because we've been so focused on performance marketing for so long that some brands have taken their eye off building that, the brand and the top of the funnel work. So we kind of really admire leaders who have got really clear, really bold visions, are able to get their organization behind it because they will help navigate some of the change that's mentioned. So, whether it is, we had Richard Dixon from Gap as one of our keynotes at Shoptalk Europe.
Loved it.
Yeah, it's great.
It's such a cool talk.
And there's someone who's bringing the momentum back to Gap to say, we know what the Gap brand has stood for. How do we make it that again? How do we line up behind it? I think in the retail space, it's impossible not to admire the phenomenal work Doug McMillan has done and continues to do at Walmart. And again, having taken that organization and made it tech first, but enabled by people, that's a huge change from where that business has been to see the leadership he's brought. You mentioned IKEA. That's a great, IKEA in Oxford Street is a great example of a store built by a confident retailer who knows his customers, who knows his value proposition and is prepared to invest. And then has in the Inca group have got a really interesting structure where they can buy the building and the property play. So those are the bold moves to come back to what you were saying. There's really admirable at the moment.
I think it's really interesting because if you look at the maturity of regions, like ESL in the UK, in my mind, has always been lacking compared to a MediaMarkt Saturn in Germany or in Europe, where they can do elastic pricing, where they can do dynamic pricing, or even own brand, right? Own label, whether you're Saks and you've just done this massive merger with the brand company and in luxury, they want to do more own brand. It feels like there's these regional nuances that, again, you must be tapped into, because you see it from a Shoptalk Europe perspective. You see it from Shoptalk Las Vegas or Fall.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what are those regional nuances that you're seeing that, in your mind, really sort of, they stand out?
Great question. And I think we're at a time now where there is so much uncertainty into the economic and consumer position, particularly in the US. So we're a US company, and Shoptalk started in the US, and consumer behavior and spending has been really strong for a number of years now in the US, and that's been questioned at the moment. So that is a huge regional watch out for us. I think one of the things that we find fascinating in Europe, we talk about Shoptalk Europe. One of the fun journeys that we've been on is you're creating a community for a environment that doesn't exist. So there is no European retail market.
Absolutely.
There are 30 plus different, nuanced, special, unique and different retail markets. So one of the things that we've done in Shoptalk Europe is say, okay, step back. You could be MediaMarkt Saturn.
Yeah.
Great business.
Yeah.
You could be Courage Dixon's.
Yeah.
Great business. You're trying to solve some of the same problems in geographies that don't overlap.
Yeah.
So let's find an environment where you can come together and learn from each other.
So you're sharing that sort of diversity of thought.
The guys now behind are trying to solve the same problems as the guys at Sainsbury's. But if you create an environment where they can come together and share and learn and share from each other, never mind the guys at Sainsbury's then learning from MediaMarkt or Decathlon. You create a whole new dynamic, and there are some incredible similarities. But you're absolutely right. In Europe, there's much more conversations about sustainability. There is a lot more conversations about the whole fulfillment models, because the population density across Europe is so different to the population density in the States. So your approaches to supply chain, come to e-commerce, very different. When we have our grocery conversations, private label, the penetration is much higher. Stores are smaller, ranges are smaller. SKU counts for the branded manufacturers are lower. So it's a different relationship. And then more recently, retail media, that's exploded in the US, and Europe is playing catch up, and it's really interesting to watch that dynamic play out, and obviously playing out in a different way, with Europe being quite so fragmented.
I love the whole new markets, that stage that you had this year at Shoptalk was interesting in terms of bringing the best of what retail media is like. I mentioned grocery, and I don't want to be biased, but there's BM, who I think it's BM in Spain. They're a Basque grocer who have created these beautiful stores that, for me, sort of made me understand that there's this sort of price war going on between all of the grocers. But then what happened to the experience war, right? What are they doing to create better experiences? What's the path to GroceryShop for you?
Yeah, so GroceryShop is our grocery and CPG, FMCG show that takes place in Las Vegas at the end of September, early October. And has historically, we started as a US show, but it's become increasingly global. And I think right now, actually, it's quite an easy proposition. There's two big questions in town in the grocery world. If you are a branded food manufacturer, branded grocery, CPG, FMCG, there's one question, and that's how do you grow volume? Because volume of branded CPG products has been challenged. So a lot of the growth has come from inflation. So how do you drive that volume, and how do you trigger and inspire and get your shoppers interested in your brands? And how do you learn from fashion and apparel, where the digital influencing is much more developed in a categories where you're still buying physically? For the retailers, it's absolutely that question of how do you kind of create the environments that people want to go and are prepared to take the effort in to go to, and how do you then inspire, and how do you interrupt shoppers? And then you layer this grocery and CPGs where retail media at its peak. You layer that over and actually stand back and you say, how is retail media being value additive to the value chain?
Got you.
So how is it helping me solve my problem, i.e. shift volume or create inspiring environments? And ultimately, it only do that if it's additive to the customer journey.
Yeah.
So much of the conversations about adjacent revenue streams focus on the P&L of the retailer, for example, or the media reach.
Yeah.
Actually, how do you take the conversation to be, back to JBPs, which is where retailers and consumer brands have traditionally been great.
Yeah.
How do you create joint value for the end shopper? Yeah. And that's the conversation that we're looking forward to having in grocery.
Yeah.
Because the bits of the jigsaw are all there.
Yeah.
But we just need to build that jigsaw a bit differently to how we've done it before.
Yeah. It just feels like we need to have a grocery shop talk, because there's so many questions I've got around, for example, the maturity of ESL as a technology, innovation, AI. Yeah. I mean, I think we should get an award. We've not mentioned AI or agentic once, right, through the conversation. But it just feels like there's so many moving pieces, like own brand and how you sort of, I don't know, provide insights and bring those to life.
And that's why we have a grocery specific show, because it's sufficiently different and nuanced to rely on all that. But look, we're our view on AI. So AI, there is no doubt it is an incredibly transformational technology. Agentic AI, it's really exciting where that can go.
Yeah,
because retail, you know this. Yeah, your listeners know this. Retail's a scale game.
Yeah,
it's about scale and process. That's how you build profit. You build profit in tiny increments by doing things over and over and over and over again. That's the business of retail. And if agentic AI can make that more efficient, which is the whole principle of agentic AI, that becomes exciting. But in reality, the technology isn't the exciting bit. The exciting bit is what the technology does. So what we're really interested in is, what's the outcome? So how is it helping to drive availability? How's it helping to drive inventory visibility? How is it helping you communicate to your customers in a better way?
Yeah.
And the answer to that might be an AI station, or it might be something else, but the AI is just in all the technology. It's what's the business outcome that is the interesting bit. And that's where kind of we like to focus the conversation.
100%. I mean, if we had your, I don't know, top 10 CEOs sat here, I think they would automatically just switch off if the outcome for the business wasn't there, right? And we're talking about technology for technology's sake, because that's not going to get the hearts and minds of customers. It's not going to get the hearts and minds of employees.
And I think one of the things that is really interesting within that, it comes back to our bold leadership, is there is definitely cultural and mindset unlocks required to take advantage of it.
100%.
I was reading Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI. I was a founder of OpenAI. Yeah. He made a really interesting observation this week.
Yeah,
where he said that they are seeing a generational difference in how generations are utilizing ChatGPT.
Interesting.
He was talking about older generations, and I don't know what that means. Shredding carefully. You are using ChatGPT as a search engine.
Yes.
Whereas younger generations using ChatGPT as an operating system.
Got you.
And I think that's fantastic insight into the change that these tools can provide, but can only provide if we've got the culture, the people really inquisitive, people with space to be able to explore, to unlock the benefits.
Yeah.
So, technology on its own is meaningless. It's all about the people and the execution of that. And I thought that was a really interesting insight. Yeah. So, one of the things that we try and do is, we focus on the business benefit, but we also try and help create an environment and a culture where people can learn to and be ready to walk away from any of our shows or any of our interventions, wanting to try something different and wanting to make a bit of a change.
I think you sort of answered this, so I feel a bit unfair going back, but if we just think about, you've got your CEOs or your execs here, and they've just been to one of the shows, what's the sort of top 5 things, or what are the top things you want them to be leaving from? I mean, we've got Shoptalk Europe imminently.
Yeah.
What should be on their radar for the next 12 months?
Yeah.
Or 18 months?
No.
5 years?
Yeah.
I mean...
Great question. So I think there's pretty one narrative that I think is the core narrative that runs through everything. And that is, I don't want to read anybody ever talk about, physical retail isn't dead. Yeah, we all know. So can we just acknowledge that
People still say that.
Yeah. So, look, what is it? 80% of retail is still physical, and there are so many reasons why that continues. Now, it varies in category and that sort of thing. So, the point of transaction for the majority of retail is still physical and will remain.
Yeah.
But for many retailers, the growth that they're unlocking is for their e-commerce business.
Yes.
So you've got to balance and you've got to resource accordingly the volume that physical is giving you, but also the growth opportunity that e-commerce is still providing. Walmart are generating all their growth through e-com.
So interesting.
Yeah, when you break down, look at it. So understanding that dynamic. And the second dynamic is that whilst the majority of actual transaction continues to happen physically, the point of influence and inspiration is increasingly digital.
Right.
So even if you've got great physical stores or great physical points of distribution, great physical products, you've got to make sure that within your team, you've got that digital mindset, because that is where the inspiration and that's where the influencing of shoppers is taking place. So let me give you an example of that.
Sure.
So globally, search, how people find out about things, like 80-90% of search is done through Google. Retail's always been slightly different because you've got this dynamic where there's a search engine, so digital search is having, you've also got what happens in store. And in retail, it kind of split evenly. So either in store or increasingly within digital stores, that's where you find out about it. And then you've got social growing. And this model, if you're a digital marketer, you'd be familiar with, okay, I need to help make sure my products are found on search engines, on retail, owned assets, and in social. And actually, again, if you follow the money, it's been relatively easy.
Got you.
Google, Amazon, and Meta. And there's a reason why those three have built huge businesses and
ad businesses.
That model is really being challenged by the growth of AI-based search and these AI agents. Perplexity was on our keynote stage.
I saw.
And they talked about they do not have an advertising proposition because they want their results to be as organic as possible. So how do you influence that? If you've traditionally sat back and said, well, that's okay, I'm just gonna put the vast majority of my digital marketing budget into Amazon, Google, and Meta. Well, how do you deal with the and this exponential growth that's happening in these agents at the moment? So I said it's an example because that's the digital mindset that leaders have got to have to make sure that they've got the right people in their businesses who are trying to solve those problems. Because I can't sit here and tell you how you influence search result complexity. It's an unknown, but what we can see is the direction of travel. So we've got to be super close to that. We've got to get people who are curious and using it. So, this balance of we are growing through digital, but actually the vast majority of volume is physical, but our influencing is increasingly digital. And that digital is crossing onto the physical store environment in an increasing way as well. And we're putting out a lot of content on that at the moment. Unlocking success in that area, and it's not always going to be measurable because we need, a lot of it has got to be great businesses are putting into brand and putting into the top of the funnel and recognizing that. That's the mindset. If I was a CEO and I wasn't confident I had that mindset in my organization, that would be the thing that was making me lose sleep at night.
I can keep going. I've got so many more questions, but I have to be sensitive to your time. Ben, thank you so much for giving up your time. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you at Shoptalk Europe and the other shows.
A great conversation. So 2nd of June in Barcelona for Europe on Monday, and I will look forward to seeing you then very much.